Hey everyone. Okay, so before getting into the Luffy and Gaban stuff, I do gotta mention the other major development of this episode, which is to bolster their forces against Elbaf. Gunko and Shamrock summon two more God Knights from Marijwa, Saint Shepard Sommers and Saint Remo Shifu Killingham. And yeah, both these guys are seriously bad news, but for my taste, I do want to talk about Sommer specifically, because for those watching who are anime only, for me, for me, as someone who's watched the anime and read the manga, Summers to me is this arc's Spandam. In fact, it's more appropriate to say he's a more competent Spandam. As the further this arc goes, Summers will show himself to be just as sadistic, unhinged, and psychopathic as Spandam is. But what makes him worse is that despite those qualities that they share similarly, it is like Summers is actually a legitimate threat, not just because of what his powers are, but also because he can be quite calculating in pretty much how he does things. So when blending all those together, he quickly knocks Spandam off his spot as my most personally despised character in the series. And I guess the reason I'm saying all this is to me, Summers is worse than Spandam in every way, and you'll come to find out why very, very soon. Like he just is like every bit as worse as Spandam to me. On the other side of that coin, though, Killingham, there's not much to say about Killingham, other than he is one of those characters where, large in part, he serves his purpose in this arc for being there. But by the entire back half of this arc is where he explodes onto the scene. Like, he becomes much more of an involved character. Like, I'm not gonna say he's like in the background a lot, but he is one of those characters who you won't really notice his whole like thing. You won't really notice him have an effect until much later in this arc. Um, in saying that, though, yeah, let's talk about the fight with Gaban, because revisiting this arc is in the anime. There's two moments that stuck out the most. The first is Zoro recalling Colin's words about his father and piecing together very clearly that Gaban is the man Colin was talking about. And I like how Zoro did show restraint throughout the realization that he was outclassed. The only time ever truly getting involved is when Gaban had brought out his axes. And like that was the point where Zoro realized, okay, I gotta jump in to save Luffy's ass, kind of thing. The other moment I really like, though, is Luffy choosing for a very brief moment to fight, not to fight, and instead trying to ask diplomatically to get the key. And it's a good moment of seeing Luffy's development, showing that he was trying to not solve this through a fight, since it seemed since when looking at it objectively, it did seem a little weird to be fighting over a key. But the only problem there is Gaban's a huge rage baiter. And yeah, when speaking of Gaban himself, I like how there's more than one thing Gaban is trying to accomplish here. Like, the most obvious one is he was definitely wanting to in order to take the Striate's measure, like just to see as a whole just how strong the crew is. And obviously he only ended up fighting Luffy and Zoro, but that was enough. That was enough for him to get the measure of like, okay, this is how strong the crew is, especially once he took out his axes. And he wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for the purpose of showing whether they're ready. Gaban has the experience of being part of Roger's crew, so he knows that things are going to get even more treacherous after they leave Elbaf. So for him, it was definitely like he was sizing up just how strong they are at this point, and if they're ready for what's to come. Which, yeah, pseudo spoiler, there was a lot the Straw Hats are still unprepared to face, just pretty much based on what happens in this arc. but at the same time, it's also good. It was also meant as a way for them to take those next steps as well, to become, or for some members of the crew to become as strong as they need to be. Then, of course, there's the other reason, which, as per usual, Shanks asks Gaban to put Luffy through his paces, which is the reason he definitely took a jab at Luffy's straw hat. But I'm not going to lie, Gaban taunting Luffy for only saying he's holding on to the straw hat, it's one of those straw hat for basically for Shanks, and that he's going to return it to Shanks when they meet again. That's one of those things that feels very specific. It's one of those moments where it feels like Gaban is calling Luffy out for misinterpreting why Shanks gave him the hat. That even though we haven't gotten official confirmation or anything, Gaban seems to be implying that Shanks gave the straw hat to Luffy as a passing of the torch, not as a give it back to me when we meet again, which in itself really says a lot that the moments the Straw Hats and Red Hair Pirates meet, that's going to be a much different meeting than what Luffy has imagined in his head. And I think Shamrock being here is only going to enforce that to Luffy when or if they meet, which admittedly is one of the odd things about revisiting the anime, which is to say I could have sworn there was a chapter where we saw Shamrock and Luffy meet for the first time, but I might have confused that with Loki meeting Shamrock, because obviously as we see in this chapter, like Shamrock ends up like he pretty much is getting called back to Marijois in order to settle a bit of a problem over there, which is to say that there's been a revolt, so to speak. So yeah, it's like I could have sworn that Shamrock and Luffy met at some point in the manga, but I guess I was wrong on that one. In saying that, I love the contrast the back half of this episode created, where there was this happy and joyful tone of seeing the kids playing, but then once Summers and Killingham are summoned, suddenly a dark shadow looms over everything, that those happy days are about to be filled with suffering and despair. Although, I will say, one thing that almost took me out of the seriousness of the situation was Killingham's voice, and forgetting how goofy his introduction was, although now it'll be interesting to see what happens when he has to switch up and show his much more sinister side, because as I said, Killingham kind of starts off as doing things on the side, but it isn't until he's forced into a battle where he starts showing his true self, so to speak, and that is where you do start to take Killingham much more seriously as a character. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe from on Blue Sky and on Crunchyroll. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and just share the around, guys. Dark Knight Everybody signing off. Later, everyone.